Listen, every single one of us who's ever fired up a demanding game or ran the GPS while plugged into the charger has felt it, right? Your device gets a little warm, then it gets hot, and suddenly everything slows to a crawl. You can literally see the performance take a nosedive. Now, most people just assume, hey, it's getting hot, that's just normal physics. But here's the thing, your device is secretly throttling its own performance. It's deliberately slowing down the processor and limiting the graphics chip, all while your user experience quietly goes down the drain. And the kicker? It does all this without ever telling you. It is not a feature. It is your device lying to you about what it can do.
Section 1. The Science of Smartphone Heat. So to really understand this lie, we gotta look under the hood at the hardware. The system on a chip, or SoC, inside your phone contains literally billions of transistors. Think of them as microscopic switches that are toggling on and off billions of times every single second. And the fundamental physics equation here is pretty simple. Every single one of those toggles consumes power, and therefore inherently generates heat.
But what's really wild is the sheer volume of that power consumption. When you're pushing it to peak performance, a modern flagship smartphone processor is gulping down somewhere between 5 and 15 watts. That's a massive amount of energy for something that small. And here's the absolutely critical problem. There is literally nowhere for that heat to go. You've got this fanless, sealed, glass and metal chassis being held right against your skin. So the heat, it just builds up, accumulating right there inside the device.
And that brings us to a crucial point, the thermal ceiling. We're talking about a hard limit of 80 to 100 degrees Celsius. If your phone crosses that threshold, it's risking permanent silicon damage. We mean immediate hardware failure. Poof, dead. Because there's no way for all that trapped heat to naturally escape, your phone is forced to automatically step in and manage it. Basically, it has to prevent its own destruction.
And that auto-management introduces us to the core concept of this whole explainer, thermal throttling. By definition, this is the processor's automatic, unnotified intervention to reduce its own performance to protect against heat damage. It steps in entirely without warning you when sensors embedded right in or near the processor detect temperatures creeping up toward those danger zones.
So what happens when those sensors actually trip? Well, a whole cascade of silent reductions kicks off. First up, your blazing fast 3 GHz processor gets slashed down to 1.5, maybe even 1 GHz. Then, the GPU performance takes a massive hit, and you'll see your game's frame rates just fall off a cliff. After that, your screen brightness suddenly dims, and finally, even your charging rates decrease. All of this is happening to lower the power draw and reduce the heat, right? But, and this is the crazy part, it's done entirely without any standard interface notifications. You just suddenly experience a super sluggish device. Section 2. The Benchmark Performance Scandal. This actually brings us to a major industry controversy that blew up back in 2023. Independent testers figured out that major manufacturers were temporarily disabling this thermal throttling whenever a benchmark application was running. They wanted to showcase the maximum theoretical capability. So, if the phone detected a testing app, it just let the processor run dangerously hot to score an artificial high number.
Which means, you guessed it, the score you see used in tech reviews does not actually reflect sustained use. Basically, as a consumer, you end up buying a phone based on a 60-second peak test, but you have to live with the 30-minute throttled reality. The device looks like an absolute 10 out of 10 on paper in that controlled 60-second test, but acts like a 6 out of 10 when you're actually half an hour deep into a demanding game. Peak versus sustained performance. We really need a new mental model to reframe thermal throttling honestly. The truth is, smartphones are marketed and sold on optimal, short-duration peak performance, but day in and day out, they operate at a significantly lower sustained performance level. Those massive numbers printed on the side of the box, they're just a theoretical peak that you will very rarely sustain in your actual hands.
Think about it like a sports car. Imagine buying a car capable of hitting 200 miles per hour, but it's electronically limited to 120. You were sold the peak. You live with the sustained. The gap between them is thermal throttling. That sports car analogy compares perfectly to your device's hidden processor limits. And the second mental model we need to adopt today is that heat is information. In fact, it is the only visible signal of a process that is happening entirely below your user interface. When you feel that heat, it means your processor is under significant load, throttling is either imminent or already occurring, and your performance is being secretly managed. Simply put, when your hand gets warm, your processor is applying the brakes. And the real-world evidence of this is just staggering. Top-tier flagship devices will drop 30 to 60% from their peak performance within just 10 to 20 minutes. It's a huge drop. When you contrast the vapor chamber cooling systems found in thicker phones against thinner devices that prioritize form over thermal management, the trade-off becomes crystal clear. A thinner device design gives you better aesthetics, sure, but it comes with worse cooling due to less thermal mass, which leads to way more throttling. You are essentially trading away better sustained performance just to have a sleek-looking phone.
Section: Practical steps for users. Okay, so what do we actually do about this? How do we handle this as informed owners? Let's transition into a practical framework outlining exactly what everyday consumers like you and me can do to manage this hidden thermal throttling. Here are 5 specific actions and the technical reasons why they work. Number 1, remove your phone case during demanding tasks simply because cases act as insulators and trap heat. Number 2, never charge your phone and run demanding apps simultaneously. Doing both at the same time massively compounds the heat generation. Number 3, avoid direct sunlight in warm environments. A 35 degrees Celsius ambient environment is going to severely accelerate that throttling. Number 4, monitor your device temperature with apps to see what's actually going on. And number 5, perhaps most importantly, buy based on sustained performance reviews. Do not look at the peak score. You absolutely must review 20 to 30 minute sustained load tests to know what you are really buying.
The bigger picture. If we step back for a second, we realize thermal throttling is just one piece of a much larger puzzle. This connects directly to battery degradation at higher temperatures. You see, the heat generated during these highly throttled moments degrades your hardware over time. The whole experience your device presents is carefully curated by decisions made way up at the manufacturer level, and as we've seen, those decisions are not always in your absolute best interest.
So looking at our previous and future hardware topics, you can see how deeply interwoven all this stuff is. We're talking about Topic 3, battery degradation, Topic 6, thermal throttling, Topic 4, benchmark manipulation, and even Topic 49, the CPU performance wall. The heat, the battery, and the processor are all one interconnected story. You just cannot separate battery degradation from thermal throttling or benchmark manipulation from that CPU performance wall. It is all one unified physical system.
And understanding this completely shatters a massive, super common misconception regarding device age versus actual processor heat. So say it out loud with me. Your phone is not slowing down because it is old, it is slowing down because it is hot.
And when it comes to those pristine, unthrottled conditions they use in benchmark testing, just remember the core deception here. The benchmark was real, but the conditions that produced it were not the conditions you actually use. We don't live in climate-controlled testing labs running a simple 60-second script, right? We live in the real world.
Ultimately, thermal throttling is a completely rational engineering solution to a genuine physical problem, but it completely lacks transparency. Look, cooling a powerful processor inside a sealed handheld device literally requires limiting its performance. That makes the engineering solution totally legitimate, but the lack of transparency, that is not. It's totally fine that your device protects itself. What is not fine is that it hides that process from you while aggressively selling you on numbers it absolutely cannot sustain.
So, will this knowledge change how you think about that sudden warmth in your pocket? You absolutely deserve to know what your device is doing behind the scenes. This kind of awareness shifts you from just being a passive user to being a much more informed owner of your hardware. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope it changes exactly how you look at that incredibly powerful and occasionally deceptive device sitting right there in your hands.